Hi, everybody. How are you? Good. Yeah. Did you eat? I need to feel like you already eat. Or okay.
Digesting.
Okay. Cool. So really happy to be here. We're gonna talk today about conversational apps with Google Home and Firebase. I've been already introduced, so not a problem. We can skip that part. Feel free to reach out if you're interested in any of these topics. But let's talk from the beginning. Why right now everybody's talking about AI, machine learning, even voice? Well, in my case, I'm really passionate about technology and so on, with other things like music, education, and everything. A few years ago, the big thing was mobile first. If you hear something about the Google I/O, the biggest events from Google that you have every year, it was everything mobile first. This year was AI first. It means like, as a developers, for us it's pretty amazing. We are living in a really good time to be developers. We have more tools to play around AI without being in data science. And in this case, when it's about assistant or voices devices, countries like US or even UK are using more and more devices. So what does it mean? What does it mean AI first for us? Have more tools to create more stuff. Basically, we are developers, we create stuff. Of course, if we have more tools to create more stuff, and in this case, we can actually use the Google Assistant, okay? The Google Assistant is gonna provide us a way to interact with the user and do some actions. A good thing about this is like it's not only ready for our device, the Google Assistant. Actually, we can use it with mobile and other devices. Like, for example, combine these with a tablet and then the beautiful device that I have, Google Home. Okay, that is like my little baby over there. So basically, you can play around, and what we're gonna see today is a way to create these apps. And also, what is the difference about using these kind of devices? Because we can combine not only voice, also images. Another thing that's happening right now is like these actions are available in different languages. So basically, I'm super proud that maybe they can understand my accent, not only my Latin American English accent. We have Latin, Spanish, Portuguese. This year we have more languages added. So we are living in a really good time to walk around as developers. So with this talk, I will introduce you how to play around Google Actions and also how to use Firebase, another amazing platform that I really like to use, not only as a developer, also as, with entrepreneur and product management. In this case, we have three different things that we need to take care about. First one, we have the Google Assistant. The Google Assistant, it will be the way that we're gonna talk, right? We're gonna have our conversation with the Google Assistant, but how we as developers, we're gonna start doing this flow. We're gonna use actions on Google. Actions on Google is gonna be the way that we are gonna say an action, and then we can interact with our app. That action could be, okay, Google, as we were playing around before, send me my schedule for today, what is the weather is gonna be like. And also, we are gonna see, as I mentioned before, how we can interact with the different devices. Let's start with actions on Google. How actually it works. What is the background of this? So basically, we start with an action. We're gonna start with this example, right? This example is about a personal chef. It's like my dream, having somebody that cook me whatever I want, food. Okay, Google, we start with talk to personal chef. That's our first invocation. We, as users, we want to do something, so that's our action. So, and then after that, we're going to have the Google Assistant. The Google Assistant, what it's going to do is recognize that action, because he already knows personal chef, what it means. And then with that action, it's going to make an answer. So it's going to be based with Google Cloud. And also, we're going to start interact with our device. So let's see a real demo, actually, about how it works.
Talk to personal chef.
Sure, here's personal chef. Hi, I'm your personal chef. What are you in the mood for?
Well, it's kind of cold outside, so I'd like something to warm me up, like a hot soup, and I want it fast.
All right, what protein would you like to use?
I have some chicken and also some canned tomatoes.
Okay, well, I think you should try the chicken tomato soup recipe I found on example.com.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay, but let's see actually how this works, right? It would be awesome if we can actually have like ready food, everything, like real personal chef. Okay, that's another story. So let's go around our actions, okay? What we saw is an intent to do something, right? So we're going to have different keys that we need to keep in mind. In this case, this guy was saying, well, it's kind of cold outside, so I like something to warm me up, like a hot soap, and I want it fast. So if I don't do this action pretty clear, for the device, it can be a little bit confused. I'm saying cold, hot, warm, everything, right? So I need to be able to understand, as a developer, how to explain that the soap is the hot stuff, none is not cold. Otherwise, we're going to have, okay, those are some recipes for cold soup. We don't want cold soup if we're warm. So we need to figure out a way to create this action and make sure that it's going to be clear for the device. So for this, we're going to use Dialogflow. Dialogflow is going to be the framework as a developers that we can actually use and start using some actions. For me, it's pretty interesting because when I started to play around the Google Assistant, I was like, okay, I need to know something about natural language process or whatever. At all. These kind of things are ready to create. So, and what we are going to take today is some different concepts, how we can use Dialogflow, and actually how we can mix it with Firebase. So with Dialogflow, we have an intent matching, right? Remember that we want a soup, we want something to eat. So that's my intent. I'm going to try to ask something. And then we're going to have entity extraction. So remember the words cold, soup, warm. That's going to be our entities and like the keys to identify which kind of action we're going to have. So if you already go into the Dialogflow platform, it's going to look like this, okay? We're going to create one action. In this case, it's going to call recipe recommendation. And then here, we're going to have context, events, and in this case, as you can see, training phrases. Everything is related with the intent of actually having a soap. In this case, as you can see, we are going to train with different phrases that we want. So, because we as humans, we don't have just one way to tell things. And especially if you're a person that talks a lot like me, you have different ways to do it. So this is on our end to design really clear conversations. It should feel natural, because if I want to solve, I can say it in different ways. If I want the weather, can I say, okay, could you please, or tell me, the different kinds of way to tell the action. So that's our first step. Again, we have Google Actions, and then right now we have Dialogflow, as I mentioned before. With Dialogflow, basically what we can do is, first of all, trigger the event. The first trigger will be, welcome, you are talking with the personal chef. And once that we have the action of personal chef, actually, we can have more actions, but that are related with our app, personal chef, okay? After we have this trigger that, okay, we are already working with personal chef, next thing is I'm gonna wait for the user to do some action. And then we have the intent matching and entity extraction. Oh, it sounds like, wow, what are you talking about? It's just a way to check which kind of action do you want about this chef, okay? So if you want soap, if you want a recipe, if you want to look something else, I should identify which is the action with Google. So let's see what is next. Here we have a demo, actually, about how we can create our entities. I'm gonna be closer to my computer because my sight is not really well. Yeah, I'm old. You were asking like how old I am. You can tell, but my spirit is young. So here you have actions and parameters. Actually, these actions are the ones that are gonna help to identify which one is the next thing that we're gonna do. The training phrases are the different kinds of recognitions, like, okay, I want a recipe. Could you please give me a recipe? And let's check step by step these kind of things. So, because we have different concepts that we need to keep in mind. Of course, we are not data scientists. We are not people, in my case, that I don't have nothing related with natural language processing or something else. But even though we want to create stuff and we have these amazing tools, we need to figure out how is the concept and which kind of things we have. So first of all, we have the intent name, right? The intent name is I have the intention of, please give me a soup. Oh, please give me a hamburger, better, I'm hungry. You know? So when you say intent, it's because the user has the intent to create an action. That's the first thing. And then we have the training phrases. That's the way that we're gonna identify that, okay, you want a hamburger, you want a recipe of something, or you want like the weather or another things. Okay, so if we go back to the example of the recipe recommendation, basically in the intents, remember that we can have the keys that I mentioned before at the beginning, like warm, hot, but we need to figure out which kind of things, and what are you talking about? Are you talking about the weather? Are you talking about the soap, right? So first of all, we have temperature. The temperature is gonna be our kind of variable, like it can be cold, warm, or whatever. And then we have dish type. With dish type, we can check if we are gonna talk about a hamburger, about a soup, about a salad, or things like that. And then we have the cooking span in this case. But all of these, as you can see, are variables, are just a way to identify which kind of action we're gonna use. So in this case, we always need parameters. And now we feel like more into a kind of familiar context as developers. When I'm going to try an action, actually, I need to say, okay, I want my hamburger, okay? So those are gonna be my parameters. And I need to extract that parameter. I need to know that basically I'm asking for a burger. And then my action is gonna recognize that, and it's gonna recognize the dish type is gonna be the burger. And again, we have entities. The entities can be variables too, but in this case, are not mandatory, can be optional. Like, for example, I want a big hamburger. I want a Burger King hamburger or something like that. And one additional option that we can already add to something that we already know. Like in this case, it's going to be hamburger. And then this is something that is super nice, and you can actually check. You have the system entities. There are some variables that we already have, and actually, we cannot put everything in our action. For example, if we know the time is a variable that actually, if we need to put like every hour is kind of tired, we can already use the system entities that Dialogflow provides us. And then that's it. We have number, cardinal, weight, speed, language, artist. All these kind of variables are already there, and you can already use it. It's not necessary for us to create something new and actually put some values over there. In this case, well, we have the developer entities. So in the case of food, if you want to have protein, like we heard before with the example, it's like, okay, give me some protein. So I need to tell to my action, what is protein actually? Otherwise, it will say, I don't understand you, like my mom. Sometimes it's like, okay, I need to tell you what is protein, because maybe for me, protein is about tofu, beef, chicken. For somebody else, it's just eggs, right? So I need to populate this entity first with the values of protein. And then these all are keys to check which action we're going to do. So in this case, if the user knows what to do, knows that they want a hamburger or protein or whatever. In the case that I don't understand as an action what actually the user can do, because let's say that I just put protein like chicken, burger, or beef, and then the user is veggie, and it starts to, I don't know, but for me, it's tofu. So basically, it can happen. It's like a real dialogue. You can actually say, I don't understand. But as an action, you can identify the way to be involved with the user and be ready to populate with new values. So in this case, that's why we have these prompts, to do a follow-up of different questions that we can do into our dialogue. Basically, remember that we are building a conversation. So here is we as developers, we need to think outside the box. It's not like if, yes, okay, like we used to do. We need to think in real conversations, feel natural, right? Not like, okay, if it's necessary, if you need to practice with somebody else, like my grandma, and that says, what, all the time? It's going to happen, but it feels silly, but you have to think outside the box. That's another thing, conversational design, something new. And then you have fulfillment. And here is, well, actually, we can apply Firebase. We need a webhook. We can use it in a different ways, not only with Firebase, but we need to populate our conversation in different ways, right? Because our conversation can be simple, but let's say that we have different actions. We need to save those actions. So let's talk, first of all, how actually it can look a conversation. You're gonna basically store your conversation in a JSON. Yeah, my famous friend Jason. So it's basically everywhere, even here in conversations. You can have different results, in this case, parameters, the actions. You can already check over there which kind of things you can put into webhook. But then, what about Firebase, right? How many of you already use Firebase? Ooh, that sounds like, yeah, Firebase. Yeah, I really like Firebase too. Firebase is a super nice platform for developers that has different kind of features. Well, in my case, I use it a lot, especially with web. And it's not only related to technology. If you are using Firebase for a startup, it helps you to develop a good product. So besides what is Firebase, let's see actually how we can combine Firebase with Dialogflow. So again, that's me trying to interact with the Google Assistant. I look awesome there, right? Trying to interact with the Google Assistant. And I'm going to try to do an action. Once that I got the action, I'm going to interact with Dialogflow. Dialogflow will be in charge of trying to understand what I'm trying to say. If my application is smart enough, it's like, okay, Laura wants a burger, right? Why not? And then we have our webhook, when we are going to store the rest of our application, and we basically can interact and do more actions. And that's where we are going to have Cloud Functions for Firebase. Have you ever used Cloud Functions for Firebase here? Okay, how do you use it?
Basically, use as a webhook here, just create a function in the Firebase console and then
Cool. Okay. Well, I don't know, a cup for you. You already got a cup. So great, yes. With Cloud Functions, we can interact because we can have different actions, right? And then with those actions, we can actually do stuff that are related with Firebase. One Cloud Function that even is not related with Dialogflow is, for example, if I'm going to use a storage, I'm uploading an image, right? So for Cloud Functions, the action will be uploading an image. And then I can do something with that action. A new user is authenticated. That's another action that I can use with Cloud Functions. And then I can actually store my conversation, because actually we're going to have like hello, hi, you know, we need two parts of the conversation. So that information, we can store that in the real-time database. You have two options in Firebase, real-time database and Firestore. Sorry. For Dialogflow, the most simple way to use it is real-time database, because again, we're just going to use a JSON. We don't need that much. So going back here, if you try to go back to Dialogflow and you're building your first app, you have the chance to test actually without using your device. Of course, it's more cool if I'm testing with the Google Assistant, but actually, the Google Assistant or Dialogflow is just not only working with voice. I can actually create a chatbot too, okay? So basically, with this, we can interact and start testing if our action is working, or maybe it says, okay, I don't understand you. If we get that, we need to go back and see what's going on with the entities that we created. Maybe we are missing to do some training phrases, right? We need to check the flow. Also, one of the things that I suggest, as my experience when I started to build conversational apps, is testing can be a little hard, because it's completely different, like the way that we used to test if your background is just JavaScript or whatever language. Here, it's not only to solve bugs, it's to check if actually somebody's going to understand my action, okay? It's, again, try to understand somebody else. Check which kind of different ways we have to say the same thing. So remember that we need, again, to think outside the box. And in this case, as I mentioned before, with the Google Assistant, we can actually use another APIs. So if we build something with the Google Assistant, we can provide this with, for example, Facebook Messenger to create our chatbot, right, with Slack. In my case, I just use it with Slack. And also, you can create a web demo. If you create a web demo, that is super interesting, because you can actually have just the URL and then provide that action to somebody else, like, hey, see what I built, I'm super cool, right? So basically, we have all these tools already that we can start using with the Google Assistant. and then created a magical experience for users. This is, for me, the most challenged part about using the Google Assistant. When I've started to go around the Google Assistant, my background is super different, like JavaScript, whatever. I love sound and music. So I used to study how the music interacts with people and everything. So even with this, you have a new universe about how, for example, is creating an app for kids. Let's say that I want to create something that is related to help kids with the homework. It's not going to be the same if I'm creating an app for order pizza. We need to check the voice, which kind of voice we're going to create. We need to create a persona. This persona will be this person that is going to interact with the user. Okay, is this persona nice? Is this persona like, okay, I need to go, I need to take a taxi, that's it, I don't want to interact that much with you. So all of these kind of things we need to keep in mind. I really suggest if you start this new path, check actions design. This is something completely different like something that we used to do. I'm not a designer at all. In fact, I don't like design and everything, but I really enjoy this kind of stuff. It's related with sound. It's completely different. And here, to think outside the box, actually, you need to check how you're going to create your action. Is this action for something that is valuable? Who is the final people that is going to use your action or use your product? It's not the same if I'm going to create a product for my grandma than for me. Maybe my grandma wants something that it sounds like a man, you know, why not? Or maybe if I'm going to create the same thing for, as I mentioned before, for kids, I need to not only provide sound, maybe I need to provide images. So for that, I need to also check how to create an action using displays, and how I can combine sound, right, and images. So all these kind of things are ready to create. And also, again, as I mentioned before, keep in mind how you're going to create your actions. Is your action just going to be with the Google Assistant? Is your action going to use with mobile devices? Or maybe you can use a tablet. Going back with the example of the kids. Right now, I'm trying to build an app that is related with storytelling. So kids are hard to grab their attention most of the time. So if I just say, hello, welcome to this wonderful story and whatever, like 5 minutes, the kid will be around the house. I don't care who's talking to me. But if you put the same thing with this storytelling, with nice graphs, nice images, actually, with your tablet, the kid actually will be there and will interact with the user. So when it's about design, it's not just only to create a natural conversation. It's also check how your conversation is going to apply. So check how you're going to listen, how the user is going to interact, and also how is the screen output? It's just going to be a text, right? Another thing that you have to keep in mind is privacy. When we are using, let's say that I'm using my action in the bus, maybe I don't want to provide my location. Hey, Laura, you are going to this address, and then it's like, oh no, I don't want that all the people hear where I'm going, right? So in that case, it's better to just show the text. So we have to keep in mind all these kind of things around to see how we're going to create our conversation. And here, something that I really like is that Dialogflow basically contains actions on Google with Node.js. If you're a JavaScript developer, it's super simple to use. And the same thing with Firebase. Firebase has Firebase admin SDK, and then you can actually create an action and use this Node.js library, and also with Firebase, you can keep in the same environment using JavaScript. again, going back to how actually we can support display and text. When we create a new conversation, right? Every time that we're gonna create a response, we can have the variables, the keys, and the entities. And in this case, we can use speak, and then we can have a different version for text. And right now, actually, you can create cards that can be at the same time that you are applying an answer. So going back to the example of food, if I say, okay, I want a recipe for a burger, maybe if you show me the final product of a super big burger, and I was like, okay, I really want to do this recipe, right? So we're available to basically create cards and not only interact with sound. And then we are talking with humans. So sometimes if I say, okay, when is the next party? Let's say, I'm always talking about party, I don't know why. Food, party and food. And when is the next party in my schedule? And I said, and the Google Action said, okay, it's next Wednesday. When is the next party on my schedule? Next Wednesday. And when is the next party? It's like, if you don't provide different kinds to interact with the user, most of the time I will quit my app. I will stop using Google Actions. I don't have to feel like I'm talking with a robot. It should feel natural. And also provide different ways to tell the same thing. If I don't say, for example, Wednesday, or if I need to schedule something, if I don't say Wednesday, you can provide examples like, okay, Wednesday is available. Would you like to schedule Wednesday? That's it. I just have to say yes. And I don't have to check how my agenda is going to be scheduled. Play with some examples. But you have to take care about how you talk with the user. You don't have to say, okay, say Wednesday. I don't like orders, so maybe it's going to be, okay, I'm still talking with the robot, and besides that, this robot is trying to make me do stuff. I don't like it. So this is something that it should feel natural, and the user should feel comfortable talking with your action. Okay, and then, as I mentioned before, how we can display cards, actually, to interact with our action. So we can do, in this case, the example is with JavaScript, and we can create basic cards. Into these basic cards is really related with material design, if you ever hear about that. And basically, we can provide an answer and create a card. And it's super simple to use. Actually, I don't have to put any HTML, CSS at all. I already have the buttons, the title, and I just have to put the input that I want for that action, okay? And again, if we are gonna talk about devices, we need to check which kind of information we have. So for this kind of actions that we're gonna provide with different devices, we need to check permissions, okay? Most of the time, we are gonna use geolocation. We need to ask for that. Right now, it's available to do authentication with Google Sign-In. That's something that improves a lot, and I don't have to do it, so that's amazing. Even less things to do as a developer. And so when you provide information, let's say that you want the location, you need to ask for that information. Otherwise, you cannot use it. Like, okay, could you please provide me your name? Can I use it? If I say yes, for example, one thing that Google Actions can do is check your name with your Google user, okay? So keep in mind this kind of stuff. And in this case, well, this is how it used to be with Auth2 server. But right now, as I mentioned before, you can use Google Sign-In, and it's super simple. It's kind of similar if you already use Google Sign-In with Firebase. It's something new that is available like about 2 weeks ago, so even easier. And then, in this case, you can create another account. Let's say in this case I have my super nice personal chef, right? And if I'm gonna use my Google Assistant or another devices, I need to check which kind of permissions I'm gonna have, and I can link my different accounts. For example, Google with my food personal chef account. Okay? So besides this, we can create transactions, okay? We can use Google Pay for this. That's another different story, how we can interact with Google Actions and payments. And we have more ways to connect. There are a few samples about actions, and besides this, it's not only about use actions to do stuff. Right now, as I mentioned before, you can combine cards, and you can actually interact in different ways. Your action can be as an option, but also it can be used or not. It depends on the user. But if you already provide that option, it's going to be even better for your app. In this case, let's go back to the recipe. Let's say that I really like to use the Google Assistant for recipes. Maybe I'm not able to hear it, but I provide anyway the action of just see it. Okay? And another thing that I really like before I finish is you can actually combine Google Assistant with IoT. So basically, you can say, hey, Google, could you please turn on the light? And your friends will be like, oh, wow, your house is super smart. You can integrate Android IoT with the Google Assistant and also use Node.js library. And again, this is some examples that actually you can use with Google IoT. That if there is even like a smart daiquiri, again, party. And there is already a smart daiquiri barman, like you can say, okay, Google, could you please create my new cocktail? And then they do it, basically. And again, if you want to play around the different templates, you are going to have templates that you can use in conversations like cards, as I mentioned before. And let's say that you want to create a super easy sample about, I don't know, how to buy something. These templates are already used. So actually, you can use these conversations. And then, we don't have so much time, but I want to, I talk a lot, I mentioned that. I'm gonna skip this part. These 10 slides. To get the resources, if you're really interested in design or conversational design, we have a lot. First of all, we have code labs. The code labs are super simple. You can start creating your actions. And also, you can already create actions with templates that are basically already done. And in fact, there is one code lab that is combining Firebase with Google Actions. Of course, I suggest keep going with the community. The community of Google Actions is amazing. If you have any questions or something, there's already a blog over there. And to close this presentation, I believe that we really believe in a really good time to be a developer. It's not like 10 years ago or even more, 15 years ago, when create something, it was just to do some instructions or something like, it's more, right now, like we have the time and the opportunity to go with more resources. We can actually play to be data scientists. We can actually play with sound. We build stuff. So for me, what I'm going to try to explain is that being a software developer is not boring. It's the ability to create things. So for me, is go and create. We have all these resources. We have all these kind of things. So go right now, spend all the weekend coding. No, I'm kidding. But be creative. Don't stop create. Even if you're working in a company, even if you have an idea, do stuff. We have machine learning. We have another resources that we saw today. So go ahead and do build amazing stuff. So yeah, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if I have time for questions. I'm afraid no. Sorry, guys.
Sadly, The thing is, however, you gain some chocolate.
Woo!
And I'm not sure if I want a hamburger or I have to give you one. It seems
No,
like
no.
It seems like we have to rush out. But
Yeah.
in
no.
any case,
With chocolate, I'm already super
are
fine.
you sure? Because we could get you a burger. for
No,
you.
thank you very
Very
much.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we have a 15 minutes break. You can go and ask your questions.
Yeah.
at the machine-
Bring
at the
your
coffee
questions
machine.
in the moment.
By the way,
yeah.
the coffee machine here is out, I think, but the one in the lounge works. So you'll survive. Huh? Both? Okay, well, okay, fine, they both work. All I'm saying is there's also one in the lounge. It's like we used to communicate better yesterday. I'm just saying, like today is something right
It's
off.
Sunday. We're chilling. I didn't sleep.
And thank you again. It was a great talk.
Thank you. Thank you.